Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be tier ranking popular fantasy book series, and the first thing I want to do here is go over my tiers. I have 5 tiers. The first one is best of the best, meaning literally some of my favorite books, 5-star reads. I would recommend them to everyone. I reread them every year, stuff like that. Then the second one is solid reads. These are books that I think were great as a series. Each book was good. I loved it overall. Wasn't my favorite, but I still love them. Next is middle of the road. These books were just mid. I enjoyed them. I would recommend them, but I probably wouldn't reread them. They were kind of probably like 3.5, 3-star reads, sort of. Then we have would not recommend. These books I did not like. Either I did not like one of the books in the series, or I didn't like any of the books in the series, or I just didn't think it was good overall, and I just would not recommend them. Probably like a 2-star read. And last we have wish I hadn't read. This means I either DNF'd the series or I wish I hadn't read it. I thought it was a waste of time and I could have been reading other books, and I would not recommend. So first we have The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, starting out pretty strong, I would say. The only thing about The Hunger Games is that I actually enjoyed the movies more than I did the books. So I would probably put this in hot take, but I'm gonna put this in middle of the road. I think as a book series, it was in the middle of the road. I would recommend it, but I didn't love it. But as a movie trilogy, I literally loved it. So, but I think for the books, I'm gonna put middle of the road. The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. This was a trilogy. I'm gonna put this in solid reads. I literally loved the first book. The cliffhanger was amazing, and I think the rest of the series was pretty solid as well, even though I did enjoy the first book the best, I would say. I think overall as a series, it was a solid read and I would recommend it. Then we have The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. I'm gonna put this in middle of the road. I did enjoy this trilogy, but it was a little difficult to read. There was a lot of like world building, a lot of info dumping, and the narration was not like, it was narrated in third person, which made it difficult to connect to any of the characters. So I still think it was a great trilogy for one that was written a while ago, and I did enjoy the movie a lot, but I don't think it was one of my favorites. I don't think I would reread it, so I'm gonna put this in the middle of the road. Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I'm gonna put this in solid reads. This duology was so good. The cliffhanger in the end was so good, and I saw a lot of people saying that they didn't enjoy the second book, but I actually enjoyed the second book a lot. And as a duology, I thought it was amazing. I loved the plot. I loved how it was more of like an urban fantasy where it was like set in a world very similar to ours, and I thought that made it really easy to read. So I think this was a solid read. City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This is the Mortal Instruments series. I'm gonna put this in this is difficult. I'm gonna put this in middle of the road. I think it's in between would not recommend in middle of the road. It was kind of like a guilty pleasure read, I would say. I read it. I forgot mostly everything that happened. It was a while ago that I read it. I enjoyed it a little. I thought that I didn't really like any of the characters or the plot that much, but I think it was like sort of like a middle of the road read. I think it was okay. It wasn't anything special, but I can see why a lot of people enjoyed it. And the TV series was not good. I haven't watched the movie, but I only stayed in the TV series because the actors they casted for some of the characters were, but other than that, no. Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I'm gonna put this in solid reads. I enjoyed this series a lot, even though I read it a while ago, maybe when I was in middle school. I still remember what it was about. I remember all the characters. I remember why I enjoyed it so much. I would say my favorite book was the first one, and I do think the ending was not my favorite. I think it could have ended in a different way, but I loved it. I love the romance, and this is the only series by Brandon Sanderson I've read, and I kind of want to read more now that I think back on this book. But yeah, I did read it a while ago, but I still think it's a solid read and it has held up. Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I'm gonna put this in solid reads because it's my favorite series by Sarah J. Maas. I would say out of the 3 series of hers that I've read, I would say Throne of Glass was my favorite. So I'm gonna put it in solid reads. I do think some of the books were a little long, but I think having multiple POVs helped with that and made it more interesting. And I think I enjoyed it as a series. Like, overall, I enjoyed it. There were some books that I thought were a little slow and boring, but other than that, I really enjoyed it. The Red Pyramid. Oh, this is the Kane Chronicles by Rick Riordan. Solid reads for sure. Like, front of solid reads. I didn't like the Kane Chronicles as much as I did all of the Percy Jackson series, but I did like it as a trilogy. I thought that some of the concepts were a little bit like weird, a little bit hard to follow, but as a trilogy I did enjoy it when I read it quite a while ago, but I think it has held up. Heroes of Olympus by Rick Riordan, also gonna go in solid reads because it wasn't my favorite series by him, and it definitely doesn't come anywhere close to Percy Jackson, because usually in books I enjoy when there's multiple POVs, but in this series I didn't because some of the POVs were really boring, and honestly, if I'm gonna be honest, I skipped some of the POVs. Like, I was only there for Percy and Annabeth, really, but other than that, it was a pretty good series. Shatter Me by Tahira Mafi. Literally only for Warner and Kenji, it's going in best of the best. Like, honestly, I think this is subjective. I don't think objectively it was that great of a series, but like, my heart doesn't want to put it anywhere else. I've reread this series like 3 times, and every single time it hits so hard. Like, I'm sorry, this is just going in best of the best. But my only problem with this series is that the book I enjoyed the most was the one where Warner and Kenji were narrating the entire time and Juliet was in a coma, because I don't really like Juliet at all, but let's just push the main character off to the side, and everything else was literally amazing about this series. I got my sister to read this series and I'm so excited. She's on the 3rd book, which if you're a fan of this series, you know that one's the best, so I'm so excited. Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber, also going in best of the best. The 2nd book in this series, The Ballad of Never After, is literally one of my favorite books of all time. This series is so good. The romance is so good. And the setting, when there's a fantasy book and the setting is amazing, that will make it a 5-star read for me. Like, not even the plot, not even the romance, not even the characters, it's the setting. And the setting of this book, I was in the book. Like, I could imagine everything. I could see it around me. It was just amazing. And Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. Best of the best. This series was so amazing. The 1st book was definitely my favorite. It was a 5-star read. I loved it so much. I love the characters. I love the romance. I love the setting. Everything about this series. I would recommend this series to everyone. Like, it's so good. Cupid the Lost Cities by Sharon Messenger. Ooh, I'm gonna put this in solid reads. Yeah, I'm gonna put this in solid reads. As a middle grade fantasy series, I enjoyed it. Now that I'm getting older, and I think now that I just recently read the 9th book that came out, and the 10th book is coming out soon, and now that I'm reading it as I'm getting older, it's getting a little bit more boring, and I'm honestly only here for the romance. But when I was in middle school, or when I read it when I was younger, I did really enjoy it at that time, so I would say it's a solid read. I just think that as the series is progressing, I'm getting less and less interested, and I thought the first couple books were the best. Eragon by Christopher Paolini. This one's a hard one. I'm gonna put this in solid reads, but like way up there in solid reads. I loved this series. The only problem was that the books were way too long. There was way too much random information that didn't have anything to do with the story. But if it had been condensed down to the main points, it was an amazing series. I actually don't think this is popular enough. I think the concept and everything was really good, and I really enjoyed it. Now that I'm thinking back on it, I think it's time for a reread. I just don't know if I'll be able to push through because the books are very long. But other than that, it's so good. And there's a companion book to it called The Fork, the Witch, and the Knife. I'm forgetting what it's called, but that companion book, even though it's not like part of the series, it's like a shorter companion story. It's literally one of my favorite books of all time. Divergent by Veronica Roth. I'm gonna put this in middle of the road. Cause I read this series and I thought it was okay. I didn't really understand the hype. I enjoyed it a little bit. Like, I would recommend it, but I also would not recommend it as much as I would other books. And I did watch the movies, but literally only for Theo James. But I didn't think the movies were good at all. But the books were okay. They were okay. The ending will always, like, shatter me, though. Like, literally, I read that ending and I shut the book and I just sat and stared at the wall for like an hour because I could not believe it had happened. But yeah, when I read this, I was probably in like early middle school and I adored it then, but I don't think I love it now. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, best of the best, one of my favorite series of all time. It just gets better and better. The first book was amazing, then the second book gets so much better. It's literally amazing. The characters, everything. I don't think I've ever seen someone read this book and say it was bad. Like, it's really so amazing. Like, it's literally amazing. Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. Another hot take. I don't even know if I want to say this, but I actually like the movies more than I did the books. So I'm gonna put this in the middle of the road. Oh, or should I put it in solid reads? I'm gonna put this in solid reads. Okay, I'm gonna put this in solid reads because I love the series as a fandom. Like, you know what I'm saying? I love the fandom and I love being a part of the fandom, but I also think that there were a lot of things in this series that could have been improved or that didn't need to be there. And I did enjoy the movies more than I did the books, but I think as a book series, even though I think they're massively overhyped, I think it was a solid read. I think it deserves hype, but not as much as it has. I think there's so many other series that should and could get as much hype that just are overshadowed. But yeah, I think it was a solid series. Percy Jackson by Rick Riordan will forever be my comfort series, best of the best. Literally, I love this series. I think it deserves all the hype that it has, and the way Harry Potter has like its own like Harry Potter world in Universal. I wish Percy Jackson had its own park. I think that would be so fun. Percy is my favorite character of all time, and Percy and Annabeth are my favorite couple of all time. And this series is my favorite series ever. Like, it's my comfort series, and I think it was amazing. Like, I loved it. It's Rick Riordan's best work, in my opinion. The Wrath of the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. I'm gonna put this in solid reads. I think it was a good duology, but I didn't really like the second book that much. I thought the first book was really good, but I didn't really like the second one. But for an enemies to lovers romance, I think it's really good. And if you love, like, the I came to kill you, but then I fell in love with you trope, this is the book for you. Like, this is the book for you. Trials of Apollo by Rick Riordan. I'm gonna put this in solid reads, but way up there, because I think this is my second favorite series of Rick Riordan, even though sometimes I got pretty annoyed with Apollo as a main character. I loved the character development throughout the series, and I loved all the supporting characters. After Percy Jackson, this is another of my comfort series, and I loved it so much. Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, I would not recommend. Like, after reading Six of Crows and then reading this, I was like, is this Leigh Bardugo reading this? Because this is nowhere near the level of Six of Crows. Like, I was surprised. I was like, it was not good. Honestly, I wish I hadn't read it, but I'm not gonna go that low. I think I would just say would not recommend, because I think it's readable, but I didn't enjoy it. Like, it's not like, yeah, I just didn't enjoy it. And 3 books were so much to get through. So, yeah, I would not recommend. The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. Ooh, this is also a hard one. I feel like the books I read in middle school have like a nostalgia factor that make me want to put them in best of the best when I know that realistically they were probably just a solid read. But the problem with the Narnia series is that there were some books that I loved, some books that I absolutely did not love, and some books that were middle of the road. So for example, like The Horse and His Boy and The Silver Chair were my favorite books in the series, and they're some of my favorites of all time. But I think The Magician's Nephew and Prince Caspian and the last book were not that good. And then The Dawn Treader and The Lion, the Witch, of the Wardrobe were mostly middle of the road. I do think that with this series, I actually did enjoy the books and the movies about the same. I thought the movies were phenomenal, and I thought some of the books were phenomenal as well. So I'm gonna put this in solid reads, but I enjoyed some of the books way more than I did the others. But I think the nostalgia factor makes me want to put them higher than I think they actually are. Legend by Marie Lu, literally best of the best. One of my favorite series of all time, my first YA series ever. Like, when I was transitioning from reading middle grade books to YA, even though I still read middle grade books, like, this was my first leap into YA, and this was my first series, and I loved it so much. Best of the best. And I'm so excited to see Marie Lu at the National Book Convention. I'm gonna do a vlog of that, but I'm going to DC for the book convention, and she's gonna be there, and I'm so excited. Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Just watch the movies, guys. Just watch the movies. That's all I'm gonna say. No need to read the books. The movies are beyond best of the best, but the books, it's okay. You don't have to power through all of that. Just watch the movies. The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. Middle of the road. Oh, oopsies. What was that? Middle of the road. I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it that much. I thought the first book was okay. Second book was okay. Third book, I didn't really enjoy. And the fourth book was more of a companion book than anything. So I'm going to say it's middle of the road. I know a lot of people love this book for the romance. I think the romance was great. I just didn't enjoy the series as a whole. The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Best of the best. The setting, the politics. Forget about the romance. Like, people are like hyping this book up for the enemies to lovers. Forget about the enemies to lovers and just focus on the setting and the politics and the plot of this book. Amazing. I was like, I have dreams where I'm literally in this world because of how vividly it was described. It was absolutely amazing. Like, Holly Black's description without too much world building and info dump, but you're still knowing so much about this world. It was just brilliant. Like, I literally want to take a class by Holly Black where she explains how to write description, because it was just amazing. A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Middle of the road. It was probably my second favorite series by her. Like, she has 3 series. I've read all of them. I don't know why Crescent City isn't here. I think I forgot to put it, but I would put Crescent City and would not recommend. I didn't enjoy the Crescent City trilogy for now, but like, there's more books coming, but I didn't enjoy that series at all. But A Court of Thorn and Roses, I thought it was middle of the road. I think it's overhyped, but it was okay. I didn't like it as much as Throne of Glass though. The Land of Stories by Chris Colfer. Oh my goodness. This is gonna have a massive nostalgia factor, but I'm putting this in solid reads. the fifth book was definitely my favorite, and the fifth book is one of my favorite books of all time. But as a series, I loved it. Like, I loved it. I've reread it so many times. Nostalgia is high with this one, but as a middle grade fantasy series, at the time, I thought it was like the most unique book I've ever read. And I love books where they go into books. And this one did it amazingly. Like, I literally loved it. If you have like and I got this series for like my birthday and I read it. It was so good. Inkheart by Cornelia Funk. Ooh, this is gonna be a hard one. I'm gonna put this in middle of the road. I thought the first book was great. The second book was fine. And then the third book was like, what is going on? Like, it just went down and down and down. It was okay. I thought it was unique. And I enjoyed it enough to have finished it. But I didn't think it was that good. The movie was okay. Lastly, The Selection by Kira Cass. I would not recommend this series. At the time, I enjoyed it. It was more of a guilty pleasure series than anything, but I wouldn't recommend it, especially not the last two books, where they're about her daughter. Those ones were literally, like, I don't even know why those were written. They were so bad, but the series as a whole was okay. I thought the love triangle was, like, prolonged too much. Like, come on, like, just choose someone. Like, we're all saying we know who you want to choose, but you're not. So it was okay. It was good as a guilty pleasure read than anything, but yeah. Wow, so I don't have any books in which I hadn't read. I guess it's because there's always gonna be something I enjoyed out of a book. Like, an author took so much time to write it. There's always gonna be something in there that I enjoyed. So yeah, I think it's good that none of them were that far. And I had quite a bit in Best of the Best, which is really good. Remember, these are just my opinions. You're probably gonna like different books. You might dislike books that I love, but this is just for fun. I hope you enjoyed, and maybe you found a book that you're going to read soon. So yeah, if you have any other book video ideas for me, let me know down below, and subscribe if you like this video and give it a thumbs up. Bye.